When he kissed her in the dark, a millionaire's secret that changed everything. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows in the luxurious penthouse as Ava stepped into the gathering. The air was thick with secrets, laughter masking something darker, something brewing just beneath the glamorous surface. Suddenly, she felt it a pull, an electric charge that drew her gaze toward him. Mark Dawson, the elusive billionaire known for his charm and hidden past, stood across the room. He was a man of mystery, the kind you couldn't ignore, a figure wrapped in allure and danger. And what would happen when he finally kissed her in the dark? The first strange element hit her like a punch to the gut. She noticed a painting hung sideways, an abstract piece of red and black swirls. The hosts had always prided themselves on their decor, yet this felt deliberate, intentional, like a message. Was it just her imagination, or did the shadows dart around it, as if it were alive? Ava shook her head, trying to brush off the unease, but the tension in her chest tightened. Then there was the whisper. It floated through the room, uninvited and sinister. "They say he's cursed, you know." A friend leaned in close, her breath hot against Ava's ear. "Every woman who gets too close, something happens. People vanish." Ava's heart raced. Was this just gossip? Or was it the ghost of truth mixed with myth? She pulled away, feeling eyes on her, pricking her skin with their intensity. Ava's mind reeled, her thoughts racing faster than she could keep up. Suddenly, the room quieted. A haunting melody poured from a corner, a violin played with raw emotion, each note twisting at her heart. The guests were entranced, completely captivated, yet she felt a chill creeping up her spine. Mark stepped into her line of sight, his dark eyes locking onto hers, deep and unreadable. It was as if all the air had vanished. He was coming closer, and the moment felt charged enough to explode. "Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Ava's breath caught as he leaned in, the world around them fading into a blur. This was the moment. Would he kiss her? Would she finally unlock the secret that surrounded him? The crowd was frozen, hearts racing in anticipation. But a sudden commotion broke the electric tension. A loud crash echoed as a glass shattered against the marble floor. The moment fractured, scattering their focus. Mark turned his head, eyes narrowing, the warmth of their almost kiss evaporating into the air. Ava stood there, trembling. Was this the moment where everything would change? What did he hide behind that charming smile? The whispers followed her still, echoing in her mind, filled with urgency and dread. He's dangerous. Was it true? The clock ticked down, and she was left standing at the edge of something monumental. What lay in the darkness waiting for her? As she glanced back at Mark, his expression was now unreadable. The clock ticked louder. What was going to happen next? Ava's heart thumped hard, each beat resonating with the panic of the moment. All around her, the guests gasped and murmured, eyes darting from the shattered glass to Mark, whose expression had switched from charming to something harder, sharper, like a blade hidden beneath silk. "Stay here," he whispered, urgency lacing his voice. Before she could respond, he slipped through the crowd, his figure slicing through the throng with an unsettling authority. Ava watched, breathless, as his presence commanded the room. People shifted anxiously, some whispering, casting nervous glances toward the wreckage and the tension brewing in the air. The violin's haunting melody faded into a whispering silence, replaced now by a low buzz: curiosity, unease, speculation. Ava's eyes followed Mark's determined stride as he vanished into the throng, his focus fixed on something or someone beyond her sight. Her instinct screamed for her to follow, to close the distance that felt like a chasm growing between them. But instead, she remained rooted to the spot, struggling to breathe through the knots tightening in her chest. The whispers, those damned ominous whispers, roared in her mind. People vanish. A chill swept through her, and she took a step back as a figure approached her through the crowd. It was Clara, her friend with the honey-blonde hair and bright smile, though now it seemed strained. "What just happened?" Clara asked, wide-eyed. The lights flickered, and then no idea, Ava interrupted, shaking her head violently as if to dispel the swarm of thoughts. I don't know." She felt her heart race at the thought of what had just slipped away her moment with Mark, a chance that might never come again. "What do you mean you don't know?" Clara pressed, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting something ominous to come crashing through the crowd. Before Ava could answer, a loud shout erupted from the back of the room. Panic surged as men in dark suits surged forward, their eyes scanning the crowd. The mood shifted instantly from excitement to fear. "Everyone stay calm. We need to know where the exits are," one of them called, his voice booming. "What's going on?" Ava asked, grasping Clara's arm. She felt a jolt of electricity run between them, a shared understanding of the unfolding chaos. "I don't know. But look," Clara whispered, pointing toward the mob of guests being herded away from the epicenter of unease. "We should move." Ava's gut twisted, instinct pulling her toward the danger. She turned briefly, searching for Mark, knowing he was out there, caught up in whatever darkness hovered at the edges of the party. The air thickened, and her vision narrowed as the sound of shuffling feet and panicked breaths filled her ears. Suddenly, someone grabbed her from behind. "Ava, we need to go." Mark's voice cut through the panic, and she felt herself whirl around, finding him close, his expression intense, fault lines of concern etching deep into his handsome features. "Where? What is happening?" she demanded, feeling the surge of urgency gnawing at her resolve. "There's no time. I'll explain later, just trust me," he said, his gaze darting around the room. Ava could see the tension in his jaw, the way his muscles coiled like a taut spring ready to release. As he tugged her forward, the murmurs of the crowd blended into an overwhelming roar that faded in and out of focus. She could feel their panic like a living thing, and her hand clasped tightly in his, the warmth of his grip sending sparks of adrenaline pulsing through her veins. "Mark, wait. What is going on?" she insisted, but they had already stepped into the gathering shadows beyond the light. "Just keep moving," he urged, pushing them toward a side door, the pathway growing darker and more uncertain. But as they neared the exit, a bone-chilling scream erupted into the chaos, freezing Ava in her tracks. It was a sound ripped from the depths of terror, and a new kind of fear washed over her. "Move, Ava!" Mark shouted, pulling her forward, but dread gripped her heart. What had she unwittingly stepped into? The mystery deepened, the shadows closing in. Would she be able to uncover the truth, or would she, too, become a whisper in the night, lost to the very darkness that surrounded him? The scream echoed around them, piercing through the haze of panic that enveloped the party. Ava's heart dropped. The sounds of chaos faded momentarily as her mind struggled to process the terror lurking in the shadows. She stumbled backward, nearly losing her footing, but Mark's grip tightened, anchoring her to him. "This way," he urged again, pulling her toward a dimly lit corridor that led away from the main hall. The air turned cold as they pushed through, a stark contrast to the warmth of the crowd. "Mark, we can't leave." What was that scream? Ava managed, her voice shaky and barely above a whisper. "There's no time to explain." His voice was harsh, edged with an urgency she had never heard before. "Just trust me, trust us." "Us?" she echoed, confusion mingling with fear. "What do you mean?" In that fleeting moment, a flicker of doubt crossed Ava's mind. Was he her savior or just another player in this twisted game? But as the sound of shattering glass and cries of shock erupted again from behind them, she swallowed her questions and allowed herself to be pulled deeper into the corridor. The fading sounds from the party morphed into the unsettling thumps of their own footsteps filling the narrow space. The flickering overhead lights cast an eerie glow, creating dancing shadows that made the walls seem to pulse with life. Sweat beaded on Ava's brow, she could hardly breathe. "Why are they doing this?" she whispered, fighting to keep her voice steady. She could feel Mark's tension radiating off him, his focus an unyielding shield against the chaos slipping away. "I don't know," he replied, glancing over his shoulder as panic hung thick in the air around them. "But I have a plan. We just need to get to the surface level." "Think you can do that?" She nodded, determination overriding her fear. But deep down, a sinister thought settled in her mind: what if this was part of a scheme? What if Mark was leading her deeper into danger instead of safety? Rounding a corner, they stumbled into a back room lined with expensive decor, far too lavish to be a mere storage area. It had once been a showcase of wealth and success, now it felt like a trap waiting to spring. "Here, duck," Mark hissed, pulling her behind a tall bookcase just as a group of men in black suits hurried past them, faces taut, eyes scanning the hall for stragglers. Ava pressed her back against the wooden shelves, her breath coming in rapid bursts. She could almost hear the heaviness of Mark's heart echoing against the wood beside her. "What do they want?" she finally asked as forgettable moments and lavish parties slipped from her mind, replaced by a desperate need to know the truth. "I'm not entirely sure. But it's connected to me, something I've tried to keep hidden. I didn't mean for you to get caught up in this. Not like this." His voice dropped to a low rumble, almost too deep to decipher, but the weight of honesty seeped through. Before Ava could respond, a soft rustle drew her gaze toward the shadows. A lone figure stepped into the room, her breath catching in her throat as she recognized Clara, the girl who had shared her fears and laughter just moments ago. But Clara's demeanor was changed, a chill settling in her eyes as she met Ava's stare. "What are you doing here?" Ava gasped, moving instinctively to rise from her hiding spot. "Stay down," Mark growled, hands firm on her shoulders. "She's not safe." Ava's head spun, grappling with disbelief. Was Clara a threat? Or had she too been caught in this maelstrom of chaos? The tension snapped as a shadow passed close to their hiding space. Mark's grip tightened and their eyes locked, a silent acknowledgement of the peril they faced. They needed answers, and fast. But as Ava glanced at Clara, her friend, her ally, she sensed a truth waiting to unravel. Perhaps the answers to everything lay within the shadows of their past. Just how deep did the secrets go, and what darkness would surface as they ventured further into this unknown? A sudden crash echoed from behind the door they had entered. The world outside was shifting, and soon, it might not be the only thing collapsing around them. What awaited them on the other side? Would their secrets become their salvation or their undoing? Ava's heart raced as another crash erupted from beyond the room. The sound rattled her bones, pushing her instincts into overdrive. Mark's eyes were wide with concern, and she could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. He was terrified, and that scared her even more. "Clara, what do you know?" Ava asked, her voice barely louder than a breath. Clara took a step back, her posture rigid, defenses up. I didn't mean to be dragged into this. I thought it was just a party. I thought we were safe," she stammered, glancing nervously toward the door, where a sliver of light flickered as shadows danced outside. "Safe?" Mark spat, his voice harsh. "They're looking for you, Clara. You need to tell us everything now. Those men, they won't stop." Ava felt a surge of betrayal wash over her. Secrets spun like a web around them, and here was Clara, once a friend, now shrouded in mystery. "How are you involved in this?" she shot, her gut twisted with doubt. "I'm not involved. At least, not like you think." Clara's voice broke, and for a moment, Ava saw the vulnerability behind her friend's frantic demeanor. "I didn't know what I was getting into. They want something from me." "What?" Mark demanded, stepping closer, eyes narrowing, but before Clara could respond, the door creaked open, and in an instant, it swung wide. Two figures stepped inside, tall, menacing silhouettes cloaked in darkness. Ava's breath hitched, and she pressed back against the bookcase, praying to fade into the wood. "Search the room," one of the men barked, his voice rough like gravel. "We can't afford to let anyone escape. The boss wants them found." Ava's thoughts spiraled. Who was this boss? What did they want from Clara? Instinctively, she reached for Mark's hand, intertwining her fingers with his. He was her only anchor in this spiraling madness. "Clara," Ava whispered urgently, "we need to get out of here." "Follow my lead," Clara whispered back, her expression tightening with resolve. "I know a way." Before Ava could object, Clara darted toward a small door set behind the bookcase. It was barely noticeable, becoming just another shadow in the dim light. "Get ready," Clara urged, glancing back at them as the men began to search the room. Mark nodded. His grip on Ava tightened, a silent promise that they would either emerge together or not at all. Without waiting for further hesitation, Clara pushed through the door, the creaking hinges almost inaudible amidst the growing noise as the men rummaged through the room. They slipped through, Ava's senses on high alert. The narrow pathway led into an even darker hallway, the air stale and thick with tension. "Where does this lead?" Mark asked, eyes darting around. "Down to the service areas. We should be able to find a stairwell," Clara replied, her voice steady despite the impending danger. Ava followed close behind, adrenaline surging through her veins. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. With each step, the muffled sounds of chaos faded just enough to hear her own heartbeat ringing like a warning bell. Then, as they moved, a cold rush of air swept through the corridor, flickering the lights overhead. Ava froze, a chill pricking her skin. "Did you feel that?" she whispered, glancing up at Mark. "Let us keep going. We don't have much time." But before they could take another step, the wall beside them shimmered, and an ominous voice echoed through the corridor. "Did you really think you could run forever?" Ava turned ice cold. The shadows shifted, revealing a familiar face, a face she never wanted to see again. "Hello, Ava," the voice purred, full of sinister delight. As the figure stepped into the dim light, recognition hit her like a punch. Secrets were not the only thing lurking in the shadows. What had she walked into? And why did it feel like the end was only just beginning? Ava's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the figure that loomed before them. It was Jake, her brother's best friend, the one person she thought she could trust. But his smirk was chilling, a mask that hid his true intentions. "Jake, what are you doing here?" Ava demanded, her voice shaky as he stepped closer, the dim light catching the glint of something cold in his hands. "I have some unfinished business," he replied. The way he said it sent a shiver down her spine. "What do you want with Clara?" Mark interjected, stepping in front of Ava protectively. The air suddenly buzzed with tension, as if everything had spiraled out of their control. "Clara?" Jake feigned innocence, raising an eyebrow. "She's just collateral damage in a much larger game." His eyes glinted with menace. "You three really are in over your heads. You have no idea who you're dealing with." The flickering lights overhead cast strange shadows, bending and twisting around them like living things. Ava felt the weight of paranoia pressing down on her chest. How did Jake fit into this chaos? Why was he here, and how far would he go to get what he wanted? "Back off, Jake. You don't need to do this," Clara pleaded, her tone desperate. "I didn't mean to get involved. Please, just let us go." He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms, the very picture of calm amidst the turmoil. "It's not that easy, Clara. You have something they desperately want, and I can't let you just walk away." The threat hung heavy in the air. Ava exchanged frantic glances with Mark, who looked resolute, ready for anything. Every pulse in her body screamed for action, but fear kept her rooted to the spot. "What do you think we can give you?" Ava forced the words out, trying to sound braver than she felt. We're not part of this. Jake chuckled darkly. You underestimate your worth. But don't worry. Once I retrieve what's mine, you'll be free to go if you survive. He flashed a sly smile, reveling in the power that radiated from him. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from down the corridor. The sound of hurried footsteps approached, a relentless march that sent Ava's heart racing again. Their pursuers had followed them. Run! Clara yelled, urgency etched into her face. Jake moved as if to stop them, but Mark lunged forward, shoving him against the wall. We're not letting you take anyone, he growled, his jaw clenched tight, adrenaline flooding his system. Ava didn't wait to see how it played out. She grabbed Clara's wrist and bolted down the corridor, with Mark hot on their heels. Behind them, Jake cursed, his voice rising above the din. This isn't over, Ava. The darkness enveloped them, but the echoes of danger still thrummed through the air. Breathing heavily, Ava tugged Clara along, her mind racing to find a way out, to understand why Jake had turned against her. Where are we going? Mark asked as they skidded around a corner, desperate for answers. There's an emergency exit at the end of this hall. Clara shouted, voice strained. We can't stop now. As they rushed closer to freedom, the cold realization hit Ava like a punch. They might escape this time, but questions loomed like shadows above them. What had Clara gotten herself into? And who else was pulling the strings behind the scenes? Then came a chilling truth that struck her. Despite their desperate flight, they were not just running away. They were running towards something confusing, terrifying, and utterly unknown. Would any of them emerge unscathed after the secrets unfolded? The stakes were rising higher, and Ava felt it in her bones that a final swift turn brought them within view of the exit, but the sound of footsteps behind them grew louder, more determined. She could already hear Jake's voice echoing in her mind, filled with ominous promise. They burst through the door, but the night outside was not the safety they hoped for. What now? Mark gasped, scanning the desolate lot that met them. Ava's eyes darted around, catching sight of a dark vehicle parked wildly nearby. We can't stop, she said, urgency pricking at her. Let us get to that car. The moment they reached the vehicle, a voice from behind yelled, stop. You want to get away. Ava's heart sank as she turned back, dread swelling inside her. The true nightmare was only just beginning, and it was closer than they could possibly imagine. What awaited them in the darkness? The real test of their resolve would come as they faced not only their pursuers but also the chilling secrets that had brought them to this moment. The engine sputtered to life, but the sound was drowned out by the rush of footsteps behind them. Ava barely had a moment to catch her breath as she fumbled with the door handle, her fingers trembling. Mark had already yanked the rear door open, practically shoving Clara inside before jumping in himself. Go, go. Mark shouted, panic etched across his face, and Ava didn't need to be told twice. She threw herself into the driver's seat, her heart racing wildly as she slammed the door shut. The thumping footsteps grew louder, approaching rapidly. With shaking hands, she fumbled to put the car in gear. We need to get out of here. Clara's voice was a mix of fear and urgency, snapping Ava back to focus. Hold on. Ava pressed the gas pedal hard, feeling the car lurch forward. The headlights pierced the darkness as they tore through the empty lot. Ava glanced in the rearview mirror, her heart dropping as she saw figures emerging from the building, a dark wave of faces, led by none other than Jake. His expression was twisted with fury, and Ava's stomach twisted in response. Why? Why is he doing this? Clara's voice was barely above a whisper, terror spilling into every syllable. I don't know, Ava stammered, sweat trickling down her back. I thought he was one of the good guys. As they sped down the street, the night air rushed in through the open windows, sharp and cold. The car rattled along the uneven pavement, and Ava fought to keep control, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire. She had never driven in a situation like this, with her life literally on the line. Is he following us? Mark's voice was grim, and she didn't even look. She could feel the weight of their situation bearing down like a thick fog. Yes, but we're gaining some distance. Just keep your eyes peeled. Ava said, her voice steadier than she felt. Suddenly, a piercing light beamed behind them, illuminating the road ahead like a spotlight. Another vehicle barreled down the street, closing in alarmingly fast. The sound of tires squealing made her stomach churn. Another one. We're not alone. Clara shrieked, gripping the seatbelt as if it could shield her from what was coming. Ava turned sharply, heart pounding in her ears as she swerved towards a side road. She was losing control of the car, panic clawing at her throat. Hold on tight. She yelled, and the girls clutched their seats as the vehicle slid, tires screeching. The dark vehicle behind them remained relentless, more than just a threat, it was a beast hungry for its prey. She glanced to the right, where a narrow alley beckoned, and without thinking twice, she veered off the road. The headlights of the pursuing car revealed its silhouette, a menacing shadow that followed closely, pulsing with an unforgiving intent. They were trapped, ensnared in a web of relentless pursuit, and Ava could hardly breathe as she screeched into the alleyway. Where do we go now? Mark's voice cut through the tension, and she could hear the panic begin to worm its way into his tone. I don't know. Just keep your head down. Ava retorted, feeling a surge of defiance. She couldn't let fear dictate their fate. They weaved through darkness, the walls of the alley closing in, the echoes of their desperation sounding against the damp brick. But that door, a door marked with faded graffiti and dull colors, caught her attention. An opening. Stop! She yelled, steering the car to a halt. We need to get out. We can't keep driving blindly. The engine's purring fell silent, and just then, the ominous rumble of their pursuers echoed closer. Ava's mind raced through every possibility, each one more terrifying than the last. What if they find us? Clara whispered, her voice frail. Ava's heart sank deep within her chest. We'll find a way. We have to. The sound of footsteps closed in, and shadows loomed at the alley's entrance. There was no time left to deliberate. They had to move, fast. Ava, what's the plan? Mark asked, his eyes wide with fear. I don't know, but we can't stay here. As they scrambled out of the car, a thought struck. This was bigger than Jake, something darker that threatened not just their lives but also their very futures. But the door marked with fading graffiti had held their attention, and as they moved toward it, trepidation gripped Ava. Was this the answer, or was it another trap waiting to ensnare them? The final scene unfolded in the darkness, an opening revealing a flickering light within. A chance or a choice that could lead to their downfall. Are you ready? Ava asked, uncertainty choking her voice. Let us do it, Clara murmured, her expression fierce despite the fear in her eyes. Ava pushed open the creaking door, tension flooding her as the escape beckoned. Would this lead them to safety, or to new horrors that awaited in the shadows? As Ava pushed the door open, the smell hit them musty and stale, mingled with an undercurrent of something sharp, something metallic. The flickering light revealed a narrow staircase leading down, descending into the unknown. For a moment, they hesitated, the threat of pursuit mingling with the fear of the darkness below. Should we really go in? Clara's voice trembled, dripping with doubt. We don't have a choice, Ava replied, her heart racing even faster. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them, relentless and close. She took a step forward, urging them on. We have to go now. They spilled inside, and Ava quickly pulled the door shut behind them with a dull thud. The heavy silence that followed was thick, almost tangible. Clara and Mark flanked her, eyes wide as they edged closer to the staircase, its concrete steps chipped and worn. We can hide until it's safe to leave, Ava whispered, trying to mask her own fear with a tone of calmness. She was unnerved by the darkness that wrapped around them, threatening to swallow them whole. Suddenly, muffled voices echoed from the top of the stairs. Ava's chest tightened as she motioned for silence, her heart slamming against her ribs. They all paused, eyes darting to the door, anxiety pulsating through the air like a live wire. "Can you hear that?" Mark whispered, barely audible. "Yes," Ava replied, the word barely leaving her lips. A voice, low and threatening, drifted down the unmistakable tone of Jake. "They can't escape. They're somewhere in this building." Clara's face paled, her breath hitching in her throat. "What if they find us?" "We'll figure something out," Ava urged, trying to maintain a firm grip on the situation. Thoughts raced in her mind: an escape route, a means of defense, anything to keep them safe. As Jake's footsteps grew louder, Ava glanced around the dim corridor. To her left, a set of faded tiles led to what looked like a basement door. A glimmer of hope emerged within her: the potential for escape rather than lock-in. "Over there." Ava pointed towards the basement door. "If we can make it past them, maybe we can find another way out." Mark nodded, his fear morphing into determination. "Let us do it," he said. They tiptoed towards the door, every heartbeat echoing in the silence. The voices above continued, clashing with a cacophony of intersecting panic and determination. Ava pushed down the handle, her palms sweaty, but the door barely moved. "Locked. Come on," she hissed, shoulders slumping in despair. But there was no time to second-guess. As the footsteps grew closer, she leaned all her weight against the door, each shuddering creak a knife to her nerves. "Help me." She turned to Clara and Mark, urgency fueling her movements. Together they shoved against it, panic lending them strength. With one last desperate push, the door flew open. They tumbled inside, a dust cloud erupting around them. It was darker here, the air thick and stagnant. They pressed themselves against the far wall as Mark gently closed the door, hearts racing. "We need to find something, anything," Ava said, her voice a mere whisper. It felt claustrophobic in this small space, and she could almost feel Jake's presence creeping closer. Clara scrambled along the wall, hands outstretched. "What if this leads nowhere?" Ava's throat tightened at the question, but before she could respond, a low rumble echoed through the basement. An old generator sputtered to life, and soon, dim light flooded the room. "Look!" Mark pointed to an old window on the other side. It was fogged and scratched, but there was a narrow ledge outside. Ava felt hope flare even as fear curled in her stomach. "If we can get over there, we might." A loud bang echoed above, cutting through her words, and the sound of footsteps rained down ominously. The darkness shifted, alive, as they heard Jake's voice again, furious and determined. "Check the basement. They have to be down there." Ava's throat tightened. They were running out of time. "Now," she urged, her voice sharper than before. They moved towards the window, pulse racing with each step, the sound of impending doom closing in around them. As they approached, breathless and desperate, Ava caught a glimpse of movement through the glass figures out in the night, their own shadows stretching against the pavement. But were they friends or another wave of danger rushing in? The choice loomed before them: window or stay and face the fury of Jake. "Do we jump?" Clara's voice shook, layered with fear and instinct, but there was no time to debate the risk. Ava looked back at the inevitable. Her heart pounding faster than ever, she swallowed hard. "We have to." With that, she reached for the window, every ounce of her instinct screaming to escape whatever storm lay ahead. Was this the moment they'd been waiting for, or was it a leap into oblivion? With teeth clenched and adrenaline coursing through her body, Ava climbed out, unaware that the shadows spun a web of fate around them, tighter and tighter, as they escaped from one danger only to tumble headfirst into something far worse. The chill of the night air hit Ava like a slap, biting into her skin as she fought to maintain her balance on the narrow ledge. She glanced back inside, where Clara and Mark were still crawling through the window, urgency etched on their faces. "Hurry!" she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. The rhythm of their breaths mingled with the echoes of footsteps from below, closing in like a predator stalking its prey. Mark was the next to brace himself on the ledge, his expression tense. "What if we fall?" he asked, eyes wild. We won tea. Just keep going, Ava urged, her voice stronger than she felt. Finally, Clara squeezed through, her small frame almost slipping off the edge before she steadied herself. They clung to the wall, their hearts racing as they peered down into the darkness. Below them was a rough patch of grass, shadowed by the flickering streetlights above, but there was a lightness in the air, a fleeting sense of freedom. On 3. Ava said, adrenaline coursing through her veins. 1, 2, 3. They jumped together, the world around them exploding into a chaotic mix of air and gravity. Time stretched, an elastic moment where fear collided with determination. Thud. They landed with a thump, rolling into the damp grass. There was no immediate pain, just a rush of suppressed hope. Ava looked at the others. We're alive. But the moment barely held as the distant sound of Jake's voice pierced through the night, echoing in their minds like an ominous chant. We've gotta move. Now. Ava hissed, pulling them to their feet. They dashed away from the building, sprinting into the street, breaths coming in ragged gasps. But as they reached the sidewalk, Ava's heart sank. Ahead loomed a figure, tall and menacing, blocking their escape. Going somewhere? Jake's voice oozed through the darkness, laced with malice. His silhouette was a sharp contrast against the dim streetlight, and Ava felt a rush of terror wash over her. You think you could just hop out a window and expect to get away? Panic surged in Ava's chest. Run! She shouted, grabbing Clara's hand, tugging her along, while Mark pushed ahead, heart pounding, but Jake was relentless, his movements swift, cutting off their paths like a wolf chasing after strays. There's no point in running. I will find you. The threat hung in the air, palpable like the heavy clouds above. Ava felt the darkness thicken around them, every shadow a harbinger of dread. They took a sharp left down an alley, the world narrowing until it was just the three of them, breathless and frantic. But at the end, there was another street, a chance to escape, a flicker of hope. Look! Mark pointed at a parked van, its doors ajar. We can hide in there. Hurry! Ava whispered, huddling close to the van's frame, her hands trembling as she pulled Clara and Mark inside. The smell of leather mixed with the metallic scents of tools and oil, but none of that mattered just then. As they squeezed together in the cramped space, Ava's chest tightened further. They held their breaths, listening intently, hearts drumming. Jake's footsteps echoed closer, a nightmare creeping toward them like a storm. I know you're here. I can smell your fear, he taunted, the words slicing through the air. Suddenly, headlights flicked on, washing over the alley like a spotlight. Ava's heart raced. Who was that? Friend or foe? Stay still, don't make a sound, she whispered, eyes darting to the van's tinted windows. Her pulse thudded in her ears as they waited, trapped in silence, vulnerable. As the engine rumbled, shadows shifted once more, a figure stepping out of the light. Everything inside her urged that it be someone, anyone who could turn the tide. Then she heard it, a familiar voice. Ava? Are you here? Her breath hitched. Was it possible? Was it really him? Jake's coming. Clara's whisper was desperate as the sound of heavy footsteps approached once more, menacing and relentless. Ava felt all the pieces shifting. Would this stranger save them or betray them? The choice loomed, heavy in the air, the darkness tightening its grip. But the answer could be right outside. Please, please be the help we need, she muttered under her breath, the weight of uncertainty crashing down upon her like a tidal wave. Would they step into the light, or would they remain hidden in the shadows? The moment of truth was at hand. Ava's breath caught in her throat as the realization washed over her. The voice was unmistakable. It belonged to Ethan, a long-lost friend who drifted away when things turned sour last year. A mix of relief and confusion flooded her. She felt the fragile hope flicker inside her. Could he truly be the savior they needed? But just as quickly, doubt gnawed at her. Why was he here? Was he really there to help, or was this another layer of their tangled past? Ethan. "We're in here," Ava whispered urgently, barely managing to keep her voice steady. For a moment, silence enveloped the alley, thick as fog, leaving Ava's heart hammering in her chest. Clara squeezed her hand, her eyes wide, teetering on the brink of panic. Mark shifted beside them, his anxiety mounting as Jake's footsteps grew louder. "I'm coming," Ethan finally called back, his voice steadier than hers. The sound of footsteps moving toward the van caused Ava to stiffen. Her mind raced. Would Jake recognize him? Would he see the door ajar and come looking? The tension was suffocating. Ava held her breath as expectant eyes scanned the entrance. The shadows danced, and then there he was, stepping into the glow from the street lamp. Ethan didn't pause, didn't flinch as he flipped open the sliding door of the van. "Get in. Now," he said, panic flashing in his eyes. They wasted no time. Mark shot past Ethan, dragging Clara with him while Ava stayed back, her mind reeling with questions. She felt like she was bundled in a storm of conflicting emotions. "Why are you here?" she blurted, fear and urgency pushing the words out. "Jake, he's dangerous. I followed him. I thought you could what?" Ava interrupted, the edge of desperation coloring her voice. "Save us. Just get in." His voice edged with frustration, but there was something deeper, something urgent, as if the world outside were closing in. Ava hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to keep moving, to escape, but another part insisted on trusting him. Deep inside, the damage Ethan had caused was still raw, a festering wound that couldn't be ignored. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the alley. Clara gasped, and Mark jerked back in alarm. Jake had found the van. "Now! Move!" Ethan shouted again, urgency flooding his tone. Ava wasted no more time. She dove inside, the heaviness in her heart finally easing as the shadows enveloped them in the cramped van's interior. Pulse racing, she scrambled to the back seat, squeezing in beside Mark and Clara. Ethan slid inside and pulled the door shut just before an angry fist slammed against it. Ava's heart seized, and she heard Jake outside, his voice menacing and vile. "Open up. I know you're in there." Ethan cursed softly under his breath, fists clenched at his sides as his gaze darted around, scanning for an escape route. "What do we do?" Ava whispered, her words nearly drowned out by Jake's furious tirade. "We have to be quiet, wait for him to leave." Ethan's voice was barely a breath as he glanced toward the sliding door with cautious eyes. But silence flooded the air, thick and heavy. Then suddenly, the sound of Jake's laughter echoed like a haunting melody through the walls of the van. "You think you can hide from me? I always find what I seek." Ava's chest tightened. This wasn't just about physical danger anymore, something deeper trembled in the air, truths hidden, betrayals lingering. The tension built to a breaking point as dread suffocated hope. Then, sparking fear into a new urgency, she remembered the night before, the conversation she'd overheard that twisted the knife into her gut. Jake had been plotting something. She could feel it looming. "Guys," she whispered, her voice low and afraid, "what if he's not just looking for us? What if he's pursuing something bigger?" "Like what?" Mark replied, eyes wide with fear. Ava bit her lip, piecing together the shards of her scattered thoughts. "I overheard Jake talking about a deal, something that could change everything." The atmosphere crackled with tension, the weight of her revelation sinking in. They were ensnared in a web of danger that spread wider than they'd even begun to comprehend. "Everyone shut up," Ethan urgently hissed, but Ava's mind raced ahead. Did they just step into a trap they wouldn't escape from? Or was there still a way out if they acted fast? With Jake pounding at the van, the answers waited just beyond their reach. Every moment brought them closer to either salvation or total destruction. Would this night end in chains or freedom? The air thickened once more, and the weight of the unknown threatened to crush them. And then, just as the door rattled under the force of Jake's anger, Ava felt a pulse of conviction surge through her. "We'll find a way, we have to," but as her voice trailed off, something began to shift outside. A new sound emerged, and the suspense spun tighter around them, leaving them frozen in place with uncertainty. The night was far from over, and so was the fight for survival. The van trembled as Jake pounded against it, his voice a haunting echo of anger and betrayal. "You can't hide forever, Ava. I'll find you." The threat slithered through the tension in the air, straining against the walls of hope they desperately clung to. Ava's heart thundered in her chest. There had to be a way out of this. Ethan glanced at her, eyes wild with a mix of hope and fear. "We have to move. Now." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "What's the plan?" "Just a minute," Ava whispered, her mind racing. She needed to buy them time, needed to think clearly. The shadows loomed thickly outside, Jake's presence ominous and suffocating. "Ethan, what did you hear?" "How do you know Jake?" His gaze sharpened, the urgency crashing over him like a wave. "I saw him meeting with someone. The deal was something illegal, arms, money. I know he's not just after us. They're looking for something bigger." A lump formed in Ava's throat. What did his betrayal truly mean? "What do we do?" "Wait for him to leave, we can't tip him off." "We need to stay quiet," Ethan urged. But the pounding outside grew ever more furious, Jake probably aware they were trapped inside. Ava clenched her fists. She refused to let fear win. "No, if we stay silent, we'll just be sitting ducks." Suddenly, a heavy silence descended, Jake's pounding halted. Everyone held their breath, confused. Had he left? "Is he gone?" Clara whispered, leaning closer, her voice trembling. But no sooner had she spoken than an explosive bang shattered the still air. A shadow loomed outside the sliding door. "Don't think hiding will save you. I know you're in there." Jake's sinister voice clawed at Ava's sanity. "Move!" Ethan hissed, making a decision in an instant. "Get ready to jump when I say so." "What? Are you out of your mind?" Mark shot back, but urgency forged resolve in their hearts. "Just trust me. When I count to 3, we go out that side door." With her heart racing, Ava nodded, adrenaline pulsing through every nerve. 1, 2, 3. Ethan shot the door open. They scrambled out into the open air, the night swallowing them whole. Ava barely caught sight of the chaos unfolding around them, a blur of figures, confusion reigning supreme. She ran like the wind, the streetlights casting long shadows behind her. "Stay close!" Ethan shouted, bewildered breaths mixing around them. Jake's furious shouts echoed, demanding they return. Ava didn't dare look back. They darted down the street, the rhythm of their heartbeat thundering as they moved deeper into the night. Ava caught a glance at Clara's panicked expression, grasping her hand tightly. Together, they pushed forward, confusion swirling in the air around them. "Where are we going?" she panted, desperation bleeding into her words. "Just a few blocks away from here," Ethan urged, his voice steady. "I know a place we can hide." Hope flickered beneath the weight of fear. They dashed into an alley, walls closing in tight. A small door to an abandoned storefront appeared before them, revealing refuge from the night's madness. "Get in!" Ethan grunted as he pushed the door open. Inside, the darkness enveloped them, muffling escape from the chaos outside. Heartbeats thumped in their ears, their breaths mingling with the lingering echoes of the dilemma stretching far beyond. "What now?" Clara asked, panic skimming the surface of her voice. "Wait," Ethan swallowed, his eyes narrowing. "We can't stay long, he'll come looking for us. If we just lay low." The door rattled in its frame, a reminder of all that loomed outside. "We could check the security cameras," Ava whispered suddenly. "If we have any of them in here, we might see how close he is." Ethan nodded, determination flickering across his eyes. They rushed toward the back of the store, where an old office sat, dusty and cluttered. An ancient computer tower lay against the wall, wires tangled like vines. "Help me with this," Ethan said, lifting the monitor with trembling hands. Ava and Mark quickly joined in, connecting cables and clicking buttons. Time felt suspended, each second stretching into eternity as their hearts thudded like drums. Panic soothed by adrenaline, they waited for the screen to flicker to life. "Come on," Ethan murmured, each word taut with stress. Finally, the screen glowed faintly, showing static at first, then shifting to footage of the street outside. They huddled together, breathless and tense, watching for any sign of Jake. The view focused on the dimly lit street, flickering shadows dancing, taut with deception. Suddenly, figures emerged, and Ava's heart sank. It was Jake, his face twisted into a dangerous smirk as he scanned the area. "You can run but you can't hide," he shouted to the night, his voice hauntingly familiar. "What are we going to do?" Clara gasped, fear radiating with every syllable. Mark's expression hardened. "We need to get out of here. Now." "Agreed. There's an old back exit, a garage we can use," Ethan said quickly. "Lead the way," Ava urged, adrenaline shaking her voice. They moved toward the back of the office, every step light but grounded, each breath steeped in urgency. The walls seemed watchful, shadows lurking, hoping for another moment of despair to ensnare them. Finally, they reached another door, and Ethan pushed it open, revealing a dim corridor. "It's down this way. Just follow my lead." Footsteps echoed behind them. Jake hadn't given up. The chase was on, and now the stakes were impossibly high. Would they break free from the darkness, or would they be swallowed whole? They raced down the path, light flooding the end and exit that could mean salvation or disaster. "Almost there," Ethan urged, urgency spurring them onwards. "Faster," Ava called, glancing back, fear gripping her as Jake's echoing shouts grew louder. "We can't stop now." The light engulfed them as they neared the door. It creaked open under pressure, revealing the night sky above, a breath of hope against the chaotic dread they faced. As they burst through the exit into the cool air, freedom brushed against their skin, but the danger still clung tightly. Jake was relentless, and they had one chance ahead. "Run!" she shouted with every ounce of her strength, racing ahead into the unknown, fought with determination. They pushed toward safety. Freedom lay ahead, but so did the secrets that haunted their past. This was their moment, they had to seize it. The distance between life and darkness narrowed, and in the end, their fight was about more than surviving, it was reclaiming their lives and the truths they had uncovered. The night was far from over, but it was the moment they'd been waiting for, a leap into the unknown that could change everything forever. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. Your participation makes all the difference.